Hello, my name's Mike Sant, Chairman of Alsager Railway Association, and I'd like to welcome you to the O-Gauge Group's Hassell Harbour Bridge. We are often asked why to build this particular style of layout. Well, one reason is the group of members wanted something to run their varied amount of stock on. And secondly, we wanted something a bit larger so we could run scale length trains on. And thirdly, a nice set piece so the viewing public at exhibitions had something nice to watch. I'd now like to talk about a bit of history of the layout, and I've got with me Ian Chippendale, who is one of the longest serving members of the O-Gauge Group. So Ian, if we could have a chat about the history and the development of the layout since sort of the mid-1980s?
Yes, well the O-Gauge layout originally started in late 1970s as a very small end-to-end layout. And over the period of years we've developed a larger and larger layout as we've got additional space in the club room. And one of the main aims which we've achieved is to have a circular oval layout where we can run trains. We originally had a large station as part of the layout, and we've always kept developing in different ways, enlarging, improving. We've developed the fiddle yard at the back and the scene over that.
That's right, because we originally had a village, didn't we? But now we have a colliery.
Yes, and also after a period of time, the station at the front, we went in for a period of change on that in order to celebrate the Gauge O Guild's 50th anniversary in 2006.
Yes, and it was the Guild that actually prompted this, because they were offering money to the O-Gauge members to make a new layout. So we thought we'd take the opportunity to ask them for a contribution, and then we redesigned the layout with a bridge on the front as a set piece.
Yes, and also at the same time we replaced the village scene over the fiddle yard with a North Staffordshire colliery scene. So that gives us plenty of operational experience and plenty to work at and keep changing. I'm sure in the future we'll also be keeping new developments on the go on the layout.
Yeah, and one thing about the layout, it's quite a size. It's 41 feet long by 15 feet wide, and it does take a bit of packing up into the back of a van. There's about 21 boards. Well, that was all designed at the stage when the layout was rebuilt, so it was easy to transport and put together.
Yeah, there's a lot of hard work. We've kept a strong membership going, I think, with interest in O-Gauge. And we have, I think, 21 people in the club who are interested in O-Gauge, so we've got plenty of people to support us.
Members, yeah, and it's one of the oldest members, who is 86, actually is still scratch building railway stock.
Yeah, and I think we've even got younger people interested now. We keep getting more interest, so I'm sure we will keep going into the future.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons for the layout taken to exhibition is to promote this wonderful hobby of ours.
Yeah, and I think we'll keep doing that
in the future. Yeah.
Right, the colliery was designed to fit over the fiddle yard, so it's quite a complex structure, which makes it a long, thin, narrow scenic feature. At this end, we have the engine shed, which is quite a run-down corrugated iron building, which was built by Peter. And also we've got the tin tabernacle, the pink church as it were, which was built by Richard.
And I think that was actually based on a local one to our area.
Loosely based on the one at Hassell Green, yes. And in front of beyond that we've got the sidings, where we store the wagons. You'll note that the local company, Settle Speakman, which used to be based in Alsager, who went out of business when the coal industry was run down.
And another interesting area you can talk about is the winding headgear we have here.
Yes, the one that we've got this end of the layout is based on a headgear at a colliery near Longton, and the winding house is based on one for a vertical engine. Obviously, a fair amount of research went into that in looking at old photographs and other local information.
Very interesting. Another next item, I suppose, is the boiler house here that all collieries needed to.
Yeah, moving further down, we've got the boiler house, again based on typical colliery feature. That one's slightly freelance design because we've had to make things fit into the space.
And beyond that, we've got the coal loading building.
Yes, we actually have a working screens whereby we load coal into the wagons so that we physically transport coal from one end of the layout to the other and just keep the circuit going the whole time when we're operating an exhibition. We've probably moved several tons now by that method. So.
And we originally got quite dusty because we did use original coal in the loading hopper, and it did get quite dusty.
Yeah, we've now used black aquarium gravel, which is clean to handle, so makes our life a lot easier.
As you can see, there's a lot of detail been put into these buildings, with a lot of research as well to make them as accurate as we possibly can for the area of the colliery that's been modelled.
Yes, the loading screens are loosely based on a North Stafford design, built out over the tracks, and they actually work so that we can load coal into the wagons and transport it to the other end of the layout.
And we'll actually load coal into the top here, and it gets shaken out down there, which the public find very, very interesting.
Yeah, you usually get the children watching when it loads up. We always manage to spill some, but particularly at exhibitions we need to take a brush with us so we can clear up afterwards.
And the next item, of course, is this headgear that was donated to the layout, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's quite a historic item. It's on loan from Jeff Saville, and it was built by somebody in Yorkshire, we don't know who, but it originally operated on a historic layout owned by Norman Eagles called the Sherwood section of the LMS. And the headgear can actually be made to work. There is a motor in the engine house, but it's a fine piece of work, that.
Yeah. And actually one of our members of the club who's currently working away in Australia at the moment remade the two wheels for us because he's quite good with doing lathe work.
Yep, that was a very good job on that. Moving further along, we've got the tip at the end. That was built by Mick. It used to be a lot higher than that, but we found it was obstructing the view, so we've actually shaved a bit off so we can see from one end of the layout to the other. And it's just based on a large polystyrene structure. All collieries had waste tips, so we had to have one.
And actually, while he was doing that, he also detailed the side of the track up with a lot of scrap items that you would see lying around a colliery. Yeah,
we try and make the area as scruffy as possible and keep adding detail. There's one or two items we've still got to do. We've got to put in a powerhouse, steam pipes and a ventilation fan. So once again, the layout is never finished.
Never finished. another aspect of the layout, because of the operational procedures of the layout, we've installed some miniature cameras so we can keep an eye on the stock because of the situation of where the control panel is installed. So I'd like to introduce Chris to give an explanation on that.
Yeah, thanks Mike. Yeah, one of the operational issues with a layout of this size is the fact that you as an operator can lose your train or lose sight of your train. So what we decided to do was to install some closed circuit TV cameras at key positions around the layout so the operator can actually see the trains as they go round. And the other aspect was, of course, of installing the colliery on top of the fiddle yard. We effectively lose sight of the fiddle yard. So there was another 2 cameras installed in there. And the other thing was, we didn't really want the general public to actually see where these cameras were. They were there for us and nowhere else. So we've been a bit clever, in actual fact, of where we've positioned these cameras. There's one at the end of the layout that's actually inside a shepherd's hut. There are a couple hidden in bushes over the tunnel mouths, and the other 2 in the fiddle yard are mounted up inside so we can see the trains, and that helps us as we operate the layout.
It's very cleverly done, because people often sort of wonder what's going to happen, and see where the cameras are, and at exhibition you do get people peering over in front of the camera so they can see themselves on the monitor screen, which it can be quite funny sometimes. The other aspect that we're looking into for the future is to have a very small miniature camera, something like the size of a key fob that you get with your keys to your car, that it can be put on top of a loco, so you've got a bird's eye view of the loco from the driver's point of view of it going along the track, which we are looking to do some footage of that in the future.
Yeah, and finally, you can never have enough cameras, so what we're looking towards doing is perhaps increasing the number of cameras up to around about from 5 to 9, and also looking at getting colour. The current system is only black and white, and that will help us tremendously.
Right, we'll now take a look at the heart of the layout, which is the control system that controls all the rolling stock, signals, etc. So I'd like to introduce Pete, who will give us an explanation of how we started with this vast array of electrics that it's simple to me, but obviously more complicated to Pete because he designed it all. So I'll ask Pete to give an explanation of where we started, please.
Well, I started with Hassell Harbour Bridge 8 years ago, when the layout evolved from Hassell Road, the original layout. That had been in existence in various forms for quite a few years, and the wiring had been added to and subtracted from, and no one knew where it was. So we took the opportunity to completely rip out the wiring from all the older boards and start afresh with the new ones. We've wired the layout as standard analog DC, and this is the heart of the system, the control panel, which feeds all the various signals from handheld controllers for the outer and the inner track, and isolating switches, signals and point operation, all contained in the one panel. We found it very useful when designing the panel to actually split it between outer and inner lines so that the two operators don't have a very complicated system to look at. They're only interested in the functions that are provided for the particular line that they are running.
Which that comes in very handy when we exhibit in the layout, because of the amount of questions we get, and distraction from the viewing audience sometimes can get a bit confused where you're up to. So simplifying the diagram made it a lot easier for operators to use.
Yeah, as I say, the system is conventional analog DC at the moment, and signals are operated by old post office relays, a system that we found very simple but very reliable to use. The points, we use slow action point motors. We use the tortoise variety, but there are several others on the market that work just as well. For exhibition layout, reliability is important, and with these type of point motors it avoids having the shock that you get with a solenoid point motor, where we found that soldered joints came adrift quite often. The slow action point motors are much more reliable in operation. This is a typical slow action point motor. We've made them interchangeable by fitting them out with a plug and socket, so in the unlikely event of a failure during an exhibition, simply a matter of unplugging it and disconnecting the point motor and replacing it with an identical one. That keeps the downtime down to an absolute minimum. We also use, as I said, post office relays for actuating the signals. We are carrying out some experimentation at the moment with servo-driven signal motors, which will give a realistic bounce and slow action to the signal arm itself. Well, that's one of our future developments.
Thank you, Peter. Well explained. Just one more question. Where are we likely to go in the future with the new developments of operating a layout?
Well, we can't ignore DCC, can we? Several members have now got rolling stock with chips fitted for use on their own layout, and I have to admit we've tried a DCC system applied to Hassell Harbour Bridge, and it seems to work quite well without any modification. Although I think we would need to beef up some of the wiring if we were going to make it a practical proposition for the future. The traction control with DCC is absolutely amazing, but there's still a question on the sound aspect. Some are very good and some are not too good, but that is the subject of heated debate on what we do for the future.
And just in case Pete is not available when we take the layout to exhibitions, he's done a superb job of drawing out this manual of the wiring diagram for all the boards, so we can all follow it in his absence. He's done an absolutely superb job, and thank you very much.
Okay, I find it very important to document everything you do on the electrical side of the layout, because under the pressures of an exhibition, if things go wrong, you need to be able to identify the problem straight away. And although I designed all the current electronics, without this book I'd be totally lost myself.
This is a view which the public don't very often see, a close-up of the working features of the coal loading hopper, where the coal is loaded into the two chutes and is shaken on these trays which loads into the trucks. The viewing public view it from the outside, but very rarely do they see how it works on the inside. And also underneath here we have the 10 storage yards.
Yeah, there's a 10-road fiddle yard for the main layout hidden underneath the colliery. This, of course, the public don't see, apart from the 2 outer roads of the outer track, which do run straight through and are visible.
And one thing that the public enjoy seeing is, because they can't see the stock, they can only view it from the 2 exit tunnels, and there's always something different coming out of the tunnel and entering the tunnel, and they often wonder where it disappears to.
And here we have another interesting feature on the layout, this inclined plane which links the high level of the layout down to the low level of the harbour. This I built to complete for the 2006 exhibition. The original idea came from an old Meccano magazine which showed an inclined plane like this somewhere in Africa. The carriage is scratch built out of plastic sections. Hidden in here in the building is a electric motor which drives a winding drum and is automatically operated. The winding house is built out of card and came from a prototype in Derbyshire. The whole operation is automatic and allows wagons to move from the top level to the bottom level, and it provides a link between the main line and the harbour down below. The incline runs down to the harbour, provides a link from the main line down to the quayside. This allows goods to be brought down to transship to and from boats. This is a very unusual feature for a layout, inasmuch as this part of the layout is almost at ground level and can be viewed by everybody. This complements the bridge and shows off the bridge to its full height. In the harbour we have a boat that was built by one of our members, Richard, and also the warehouse was built by Derek and is modelled on a warehouse on Merseyside. The quayside is full of activity, with goods coming in to and fro by rail and transshipped to and from the boat. The whole scene sets the bridge off in its best possible way.
Now I'd like to talk about the main feature of the layout, which is the bridge here, which was built on one at Sunderland over the River Wearmouth, although not an actual copy. The design of it was also helped with one of our members, who's a retired civil engineer, who made sure that it looked right and was purposeful for the job. It's actually made out of plywood in a core, which was drawn on a CAD computer system at work, and then a company lasers it out of plywood for us to make it accurate. The rest of the detail was put on with card and plastic, and actually the individual rivets were put in by another member of our club, Bert, who put all these in by hand, which are small brass nails, and that led him to become with a nickname as Bert the Rivet. A lot of time was put into this. Bert and myself took us approximately 2 years coming down to the club 1 day a week, and also was a little bit stressful because we had a dead time of September 2006, which was going to be its first exhibition. The credit for the bridge must also go to some other members, Richard and Ian, who built the base, and to Mick and Chris, who did all the stonework on the actual pillars and the viaduct sides. And I suppose if we were asked what was the best thing about the layout that we like, it is actually the bridge. Another feature on the layout is these working crossing gates, and they were built for us by the late Bill Shenton a number of years ago. And Bill was quite an engineer and very, very good on the lathe, who would even make tools to construct things on the lathe. The mechanism underneath was constructed for us by another member of the club, Phil, who at the moment resides in Melbourne in Australia, and they do fully open and close. So now we'll see a demonstration of the gates opening. And as we move down the layout, another feature is the working signals. They've all been constructed either from scratch or from components bought from MSE, a trader who supplies bits and pieces to do your signals with. They've all got small LEDs on the top that light up, and they all do work, some wired in with the points to operation. We also have colour light signals as well. Although people sometimes ask, they're a bit modern for this layout, but there were colour light signals on the railways in the 1940s. And we have about 2 colour light signals and about 14 semaphore signals around the layout that all work.
From the pre-railway age, we have this little canal scene on the layout. It's been constructed by several members over the years and provides a link with other transport systems. We have the narrow gauge railway coming round, which would have emptied its load into the canal boats. This link will eventually run up to the colliery, so we can transport coal down to the canal. We also have features on here of the canal side offices and the blacksmith's works where the horse is being shoed. So all in all, we have quite a little pretty scene here to enhance the layout.
Right, now what we'd like to do is look at some more interesting features on the layout, little set pieces which we call cameos that bring interest to the viewing public. One of them here is the horse and dray delivering the beer to the pub. If we move on towards the pub, we've got various vehicles parked outside calling in for refreshment, a couple of horse riders meeting to have a chat, and the grandfather with his two grandsons checking the trains as they go past. Moving along a bit further, we have the shooting party, and moving further down the hill, a bunch of scouts trying to find an area to pitch their tent. And further down on the quayside, we have a local artist painting a picture of the boat being watched on by one of the local old boys. And also underneath the bridge, we've got a couple of seagulls hanging down on some very fine fishing line, which creates interest to the younger viewing public as they are lower down. Another interesting feature is the garage area, with a car being repaired and welded up inside the garage, and the attendants outside are waiting to serve vehicles with petrol. We also have a signal box with interior detail. And moving along a little further still, we have the local church, and at the side the vicar's greeting a gentleman who's just come to ask instructions about a burial. Another feature on the layout is this recently installed engine shed, which we put on. The engine shed was part of the old layout, which we've reused just to make the corner more interesting, with a bit more activity. The coalman loading up his coal sacks off the wagon onto his horse and cart, and a group of men just sitting having a general chat. It does add interest, and we do move locos in and out of the shed. And we also have some interesting photo shoots going on in some secluded areas on the layout. Some other interesting areas, now the two horses in the field, and walking through to the road just outside the pub. The taxi's just arrived with the gentleman who's inquiring about a lift to go and play golf. Panning across past the pub, a couple of young lads down by the stream who have spotted some swans and a heron further down. And another interesting area moving on from the pub is the farmer having a word with his shepherd about the size, shape, and if the sheep are in good order. And another one that our layout should always have is track ganging personnel who go along to check the track's in good order. Another interesting feature is the fox hunt that's just come off the bridge, and the lady of the fox hunt is talking to the gentleman to find out, have you seen the fox, sir? Also, another one is the local school teacher taking two of his pupils out to explain to them about the miniature Stonehenge. And also another area on the layout is this small station area where local trains stop to drop off and pick up passengers. And behind the station is also another small exchange station for the colliery workers who come to and return from work via the main line. And yet another area where two local land girls are having a chat to the landowner about clearing the field of corn. Another interesting feature on the layout is the entrance tunnel to the fiddle yard. That has been incorporated to the new layout and was built by the gentleman who assisted in building the girder bridge on the front. We now come to a couple of the final pieces on the layout. One, a row bridge that was built by another elderly member of the club, which is based on one in Birmingham, which was part of the old layout and has now been incorporated onto the new layout. And finally, to the two woodmen cutting some logs ready for transportation to somewhere on the layout. Here at Hassell Harbour Bridge layout, we have a varied amount of rolling stock, as each member has their own particular era that they like. My particular interest is the LNER, and this particular loco, an A4, has been built from a Martin Finney kit with much added detail. One particular item was the bell on the front, which was turned up for me by the late Bill Shenton on his lathe. All being constructed by myself and painted. I like the LNER, that's my favourite. The coaches behind the train were partially scrap built, made from some samples and aluminium sheets done for me by Westdale, and the rest of it has been put together by myself, consulting photographs and drawings which I got from the National Railway Museum.
Representing the Great Western, we have a Great Western Mogul. This was built from a now obsolete Pilgrim's kit, pulling a rake of Scorpio and Westdale coaches. This was the first loco I built 25 years ago, my introduction into O-gauge. As this one pulls away, coming into shot will be another of my favourite locos. I'm also into the LMS, and this is the Stanier Coronation Pacific, Duchess of Sutherland, built from a Gladiator kit and pulling a rake of Stanier Mark III stock, mostly from Ian Kirk plastic kits and some sidelines.
Here is some of my rolling stock. These two locos I've built and have local interest for North Staffordshire. They're both North Stafford locos in LMS livery. The red one was built from a Chowbank kit, and the other one is a modified kit. The coaches are also representative of the LMS in the 1920s period. Also a particular favourite of mine is the North London tank, the small black loco there. Again, that's representative of the LMS in the early 1920s. This is just to show that here on Hassell Harbour Bridge we're not all just about steam locos. Here we've got Bill's Class 47. This is from the British Rail 1960s era and is hauling a suitable parcels train from that period. And here, from a slightly earlier era, in the late 1950s, is Derrick's prototype Deltic. This is the loco as it was running on the West Coast Main Line. And here we see it in all its full glory.
When we take the layout to exhibitions, we need a minimum of at least 8 of us. That is required to take the layout there, to erect it and dismantle it, and to operate it. And we require 2 operators for each of the main lines, 2 operators for the colliery, one operator for the narrow gauge and another operator stroke information officer to give the public information when they ask questions. Our aim at exhibitions is to entertain the public, so we always have some stock running at all times. This is needed because we like to promote the hobby. It's a good hobby, and also we like to enjoy ourselves and have some fun as well. All Sager Railway Association are very proud of this layout as a club. We as the O Gauge group are also proud of this layout, as I am myself, and I'd like to thank the team who've helped to put this layout together. Without them it wouldn't exist. It's a good layout and I hope you'll be able to see it around the exhibition circuit. So I'd like to thank the team and thank All Sager Railway Association for their help and contribution in many ways. I hope to see you sometime in the future. Thank you.